President Francesco Rutelli, thank you again very, very much for the high honor that you have given us by coming today to the Institute for Culture Diplomacy for your excellent keynote address. And we really appreciate you allowing us to have this opportunity right now to ask you a few questions to follow up the excellent and I think very thought-provoking lecture that you've just delivered. First question I'd like to ask you is a simple question with a very complex answer depending who one asks. What is cultural diplomacy?
First of all, is something you deserve to be thanked because you are making an excellent job, a very original job. We have to thank you, we politicians, we people all over the world who think that cultural diplomacy is important, is a complex thought concept, because you are creating an idea that is not yet well known in the world through your work, through your activity. So thank you. I'm here to say thank you because I appreciate what you're doing. Cultural diplomacy, from my point of view, of course, is helping mutual understanding between people who doesn't understand each other or sometimes hate each other through responsibility and through culture. Culture, of course, is at the crossroads of modern times because it is identity, national identity, local identity, anthropological identity, but it is also the real challenge for diversity. I mean, identity is all, maybe, today, for many people, and cultural diplomacy is the way to help identity not to become the basis, the root for a clash of civilization. A clash of civilization comes out from fighting for identity. Peace comes out from defense and promotion of diversity. That is cultural diplomacy through many means: arts, culture, dialogue, and cultural initiatives.
And I agree with what you're saying. I think in terms of identity, on the one hand, there's the question, first of all, what is the identity at hand that we're talking about? And where cultural diplomacy, I think, can really get involved, how is that identity presented abroad? How is it perceived abroad? And sometimes cultural diplomacy, I think, can help in correcting misinformation or supplementing partial information. Second question I wanted to ask you is, for a country like Italy, why is cultural diplomacy relevant, let's say, in the European context? And why is it relevant in the international context? And could you give an example of maybe your favorite form of cultural diplomacy that really helps to bring the results that you just mentioned cultural diplomacy can bring?
Italy was the main target, the main goal for Grand Tour. Grand Tour was the experience from 16th to 19th century for the elite, for the ruling class in Europe. And all these people spent months or years in Italy. And Italy, that even didn't exist as a country, as a nation then, because it was a fractious, divided country made by cities and small states, was helped in forging its modern identity through the Grand Tour. I mean, through the idea that many people from British culture, from Nordic countries, from France, from Belgium, from Germany, used to make with a special tour to the majesty of history, of art, architecture, archaeology. But it was also a living experience. You don't see often, that is also cultural diplomacy, love. I could say sex was part of the Grand Tour, because it was a mixed experience. So cultural diplomacy, of course, needs institutions, needs facilitators in the dialogue between countries and to solve conflicts. But cultural diplomacy is also a mean for understanding the real basis of a nation, of a country, of a people, and knowing that helps avoiding the wars and the conflicts.
Well, thank you you very much. My colleagues would also like to ask.
Mr. Rutelli, it is again an honor to have you here with us. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. I enjoyed very much what we were discussing before about the cultural heritage, about the importance of it in today's world. And what you mentioned before, I think it's very interesting because talking to German people just yesterday, they mentioned Italy as the highlight of the romantic and idealistic way of life, way of thinking. So, and I think cultural heritage today is hand by hand going with tourism also, and with having institutions that help culture moving. So my question is more about the efforts that you think are made today by the European Union to enhance this, to strengthen these relationships through tourism and through the sharing of culture. Do you think there are...
During your question, of course, you gave the answer, because culture and tourism are part of an industry. And to be a promoter of cultural diplomacy means also for a country to promote not only the heritage, that is fundamental, of course, the monuments, as I said, and the archaeology and the architecture and so on, but it is promoting contemporary issues. I mean, fashion is part of cultural diplomacy, food, what we in Italy we call gusto, tasting, flavoring a country is not only, of course, visiting a museum. It is experiencing a country. And that should be very important today when we have such a problematic situation in the economy after the financial crisis, because it is very easy to delocalize industries, but it is impossible to delocalize culture.
Exactly, thank you very much. But then I would ask you a more tricky thing.
Yes.
Would you think that Italy has a privileged position in that matter because of all the cultural heritage? What I mean is that in the European Union, do you see a common effort leading to tourism as a tool to strengthen your relations as a whole?
You see, tourism is not really, it is a marginal responsibility for European Union. There is a commissioner who's an Italian, who has in his portfolio also the tourism. But of course, tourism is a national issue, is a local issue. It is very difficult to promote a new grand tour. But it would be very wise to promote a new grand tour and to have a sort of partnership. It happens with cruising by the sea. It happens by organized travel. But today, as you know, of course, young people and people wants to build his personal grand tour. They don't want to be taught on how to visit Italy. They want to learn by themselves. They want to learn through the internet. Of course, it is not always innocent, because the internet is ruled by economic priorities. So people who wants to decide what is his personal grand tour in Europe, also to strengthen what you said, and to strengthen also the institutional responsibility of European Union on that field. You never, please, never forget that people decide personally. There is nothing more personal than the contemporary grand tour. And if you want to create a state grand tour, it could have happened here in Berlin when in the communist era, but frankly not today. People has a personal choice, makes it his personal choice, and that helps cultural diplomacy, because it builds a personal view, it builds relations, it builds friendship, it builds economy, it builds jobs, it creates wealth, and I think it is among the most important things we could do. With my French counterpart, the French Minister of Culture, I signed an agreement, but it was impossible because he changed as a minister to create an index of European monuments, a sort of not the UNESCO heritage list, but a sort of European identification of the very place where the European idea was born. It was very interesting, from the Partenone in Athens to Campidoglio, to the very place where European culture, religion, and expression were born and developed. So we have much to do, and never forget the way is personal, but the political decision should be a priority for politicians today, because culture and tourism can give much more than politics usually consider. If we close a factory with 1,000 people, it is a drama in Europe. But we don't have to forget that every day you can open a factory with many thousand people through culture and tourism.
Thank you very much, and now I'm going to leave you with my colleague, who's also Italian.
Onorevole Rutelli, è stato un piacere ascoltare la sua presentazione ed mi ha reso ancora più orgoglioso di essere italiano, but my question will be in English. As former mayor of Rome for 2 mandates, what do you think is missing in the administration of this beautiful city, I would say the most beautiful city in the world, in order to fulfill its huge potential, both as a tourist destination, as in one of the most important capital cities in the world? And don't you agree on the fact that in terms of innovative policies, ideas and initiative, this city lies some sort behind some of the other European peers capitals, such as Berlin, for example?
I totally agree, because there is a lack of innovation, there is a lack of contemporary promotion. For instance, you see, if you want, according to my opinion, if you want to understand how much a city is vibrant, you have to see if there are contemporary artists. Of course, it is very difficult in current times to support contemporary art, because the market supports the great, the biggest among them, and it's very, very difficult to be promoted for young people. But I do agree with you. If a city doesn't promote contemporary art, and of course research, innovation and technology, is a wonderful city of the past, while it should be and should always be a contemporary city. As you know, cities today are the place where the majority of humankind lives. It was just 6% 100 years ago, because 94 lived in the countryside. Cities are the very place for innovation, and cities are the very place, I think, to green economy, I think to technology related to energy and environment, and what we call today smart cities. All the concentration of innovation is in cities. So if you have a city where you have ruins without contemporary expression, it is a ruin.
Thank you very much.
If I may, let me to ask just one concluding question related to that. It's also related to our conversation earlier today. There are, I think, 3 big schools of thought in the field of culture diplomacy. One school of thought is that culture diplomacy should be about promoting, about telling our stories abroad, as you were saying, to really to support innovation, etc. There's a second school of thought. The culture diplomacy should be about protecting, in the sense about putting limits, whether it's quotas, etc., preservation. And there's a third school of thought that culture diplomacy actually shouldn't be about either of those things. It should just be about listening, in the sense it should be facilitating access between cultures to allow citizens to listen to the stories of other cultures. So my question to you is, how would you see the future of culture diplomacy, keeping in mind those 3 very different strategies for the field?
You see, Picasso used to say, because he was a master, he was very aware of his genius. He used to say, well, in Italian or in Spanish, sounds, io non cerco, trovo. That means I don't search, I find. He could say that, but a contemporary man or woman should not say that. I think that an honest broker and also a visionary thinker or politician should say, "I don't speak, I hear from you." Of course, you have to speak because otherwise you have the silence. And culture is not silence. Culture is expression. But without the capacity of hearing from other people, you don't have the dialogue. And if you don't have the dialogue, you don't have peace. And if you don't have peace, you don't have progress.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Rutelli. It was an honor having you here at the Institute. We really appreciated it.
I'm not professor, but I'm a friend.
Senator, thank you very much. Thank